Report by the United Nations states that the world is being inundated by plastic. More than 400 million tons of plastic is produced every year, half of which is designed to be used only once. Of that, less than 10% is recycled, and estimated at 23 million tons end up in lakes, rivers, and seas. And so today, plastic clogs our landfills and, of course, leaches into the ocean and is combusted into toxic smoke, making it one of the greatest threats to the planet. And so as we celebrate the World Environment Day, we might make so much noise about it, but we keep asking ourselves, why is it that there's so much effort towards protecting the environment, yet not much of activity is being witnessed in terms of reversing, getting us to the gains where, of course, we have all intended to be. And so as we get to this conversation, Josephine Wawira joins us for the same. Josephine is a communications lead, Sustainable Inclusive Business Kenya. And so, Josephine, it's a pleasure to have you this morning. Thank you for creating time. So I'll start off by asking this question that everybody else is asking. And in fact, with the gentlemen that, are here, we touched a bit on the environment and the fact that perhaps the West is not keen in making it easy for Africa to join in this very conversation. And then I asked a very basic question. Why would they put so much resources, energy, and time towards making the best of the environment, yet they appear not to have goodwill in making sure that Africa is part of the conversation?
Well, thank you very much, Linda, for having me today. And I'm quite excited because this World's Environment Day theme is focusing on a very passionate topic for me, which is plastic pollution. And the question you asked is because for me, I look at it this way. Think of a headache, for instance. You have this concurrent headache that happens now, happens tomorrow. You take your painkiller, but it doesn't go away. So at some point you have to ask yourself, what is causing the headache? Maybe what I was thinking it was is not the case. And so you see a doctor to be able to identify the main cause of your headache and treat it from the source. So in my belief, why we are still doing the same things over and over again, talking about plastic pollution, but the problem continues to persist, is because we have not focused on identifying the main cause of the problem. Now remember, plastic has never been the solution, has never been the problem in any case. Plastic has provided very great solutions to our problems. I always think that the inventor of plastic is one of the biggest geniuses in this world.
Because honestly, you can imagine a world without plastic.
Imagine a world without plastic. Now, while plastic may not be the problem, we are the problem. How we relate with the plastic, how we deal with the plastic, how we produce the plastic, how we dispose of the plastic. Now, you have mentioned some statistics globally about the situation on plastic pollution. Now, if we look at Kenya, I would want to create a small picture. 36% of the plastics we produce is for packaging. Now, 85% of that ends up in the landfill. And whose responsibility is that? We are the one. Have you been so annoyed by someone? You're sitting with someone, or you see someone driving a very big car and you think, this must be a very intelligent person. And then just ahead, they throw out a plastic bottle and you're like,
why was,
how does that even make sense? You understand? So it is how we relate to the plastic that has caused all this problem. And for me, the message I want to pass this World Environment Day, that we need to rethink. We need to rethink the models. We need to rethink how we design plastics. We also need to rethink whether in the next 10, 15 years, we want to celebrate World Environment Day, talking about the same things that we are talking today, that we were talking 10 years ago.
And I'm glad that you here have been very keen on this conversation on plastic pollution. And now that we are talking of a theme that speaks of beat plastic pollution and perhaps the works that you've been doing in the country, the question then would be, as we want to look at what the global fraternity is doing, I think it's important that we are keen in our very own local level. Would you paint a picture of what plastic pollution is like in the country today?
So like I said before, Kenya, I appreciate the efforts that the country has made. Actually, we're one of the trailblazers when it comes to environmental conservation in general, and also plastic waste pollution management. Now, if you remember in 2017, Kenya banned the plastic bag ban. which has been very immensely appreciated globally. Right now, I think we can count between 80 and 90% a success rate. But remember, we still have porous borders, which is one of the major challenges that we have. And so regional integration as well. We're talking about East Africa having policies that are regionally accepted so that we help each other in beating the plastic pollution.
Right.
Now, also in 2020, on a World Environment Day, I remember it was on 5th June, we impacted what we call the ban on single-use plastics in protected areas. That is why today you cannot enter into Karura Forest with a plastic bottle. You have to carry reusable bottles, and any other protected area. Now, the efforts have been there. We now have the EPR coming into place. EPR is the extended producer responsibility, which gives the responsibility back to the producer to make sure that they take care of the end user or end of the life product. So at the end of the day, if I'm producing plastic, and a producer is then defined as anybody who brings in or plastic into the market, whether you're importing or you're producing locally. Now, with all these initiatives, I think for us to be able to succeed in beating plastic pollution, it has to be a multi-level stakeholder engagement. So each one of us has a role to play. From the government, the government is putting into place these efforts. Then what is the private sector doing? When I talk of the producers, then the private sector are the producers, We have the recyclers. So we all must come together to make sure that all these efforts are, conjoined towards beating plastic solution. And a circular economy in this case, making sure that we keep those plastics within the system and out of the environment. And how do we do this? First, we eliminate what we don't need. And like I mentioned the bans before, but there are still items that in the plastic value chain that we don't need. They are either problematic or they are unnecessary. So when we eliminate those, then we make sure that those plastics that we must use, then they are reusable and they are recyclable. And how we do this is through innovation, through reuse, and through rethinking design.
Right.
So each one of us, from consumers to the government, to the private sector, to the civil society, we all have a role to play.
You see, the president today has a session on the United Nations Habitat Assembly at the United Nations complex in Gigiri, and perhaps also coming together and joining the world in this very important conversation. I don't know whether you have this feeling that perhaps we are moving in circles, and sometimes it gets many people worried, because why do we get to engage in this very conversation? And I am glad that you mentioned 2020. I think I hosted you, if not you, then someone from your entity, in relation to the same conversation. It breaks my heart to for us to acknowledge that yes, we are at say 80%, success in terms of addressing the question of plastic. What stops us from attaining this 20%? We all got worried for a moment when they said ban all this plastic use and all that. We all felt like the world will come to a halt, but successfully we are somewhat doing it. Why is it that we're not attaining the 100% mark?
Now, but when I mention of the 80 to 90%, that is particularly on the implementation of the plastic bag ban in particular.
Yes.
Otherwise, we are still far off. If I just mention the rate for plastic recycling in Kenya, for instance, we are talking of between 8 to 10% recycling rate. Now, if you talk to a recycler in Kenya and you ask them, why are we not able to move to 15%, 20%, 30%? And they'll tell you one thing. When we collect these plastics, we have, for instance, additives that, one, make it very difficult for us to recycle, or even if it's not difficult, completely impossible for us to recycle. So at this 8 to 10% rate, then those are the items that are completely, recyclable. And one of the initiatives that the private sector has formed is the Kenya Plastics Pact. It is a voluntary initiative that brings together all these stakeholders in the value chain, from the collectors in the informal sectors to the recyclers, to the producers and the government, to make sure that we all create a circular economy for plastics that does not end up in the environment but remain in the value chain.
But how successful have we been in this conversation of the circular economy, or perhaps just how much is it coming in to contribute to this process of addressing the plastic menace?
I would say we are making progress, maybe not as fast as we would want to, but we are making progress. And for me, I think taking a step at a time towards the right direction is better than getting stagnated at the same place. Yeah. So, for instance, what I'm saying is, can we address this problem at the source?
Yeah.
Can we start redesigning products so that they are more recyclable? Otherwise, we shall remain at the same 9 to 10%. Yeah. So by 2030, let's say, Kenya Plastics Park has set a target of making sure that all plastic packaging products are 100% recyclable.
Yeah.
But out of those, 40% is actually being recycled. So how do we move from 10% to 40%? Number one, let's rethink design.
Right.
Start redesigning products and engaging even as creatives in any companies. If you are producing plastic, and we are saying we may not get rid of it completely, but the ones that we must keep, let's rethink. Let's remove the additives that are making it more difficult to recycle. Let's a simple step that would actually make a very big difference. You've seen the PET bottles for soda.
Yeah.
Some are brown, some are green, some just making a very big decision of moving from those colored bottles to clear bottles improves recycling rates by a big margin. So some of those decisions, removing additives that make the HDPs more difficult to recycle, completely increases or makes a difference. And I'm very proud of our members who have made that commitment to walk this journey and say, we may not change everything overnight, but we shall start with one product at a time. We are committing to move this PET bottle of our packaging product from this color to clear. And that for me, Alela, may make a difference so that in 2030, we are having a completely different, so that not every year we are doing cleanups, not every year we are holding summits and talking and making the same promises and not making a difference. The other thing that we need to do is investment, investing in recycling, investing in, a circular economy. From the
and perhaps even as you continue with that, I think for purposes of knowledge and for those ones that would, just be hearing this from the peripheries, just what is exactly involved in the circular economy that you speak about, because recycling is part of it, but as time goes by we realize that, well, beyond that there's some difficulties that come along with that. So what other things that would be involved in this circular economy that would speak to the menace and address it?
Good question. So let me just maybe for the very basic explanation. Currently, or for a long time, we're now been operating on a linear economy. By linear, I mean we take resources from the environment, we make things out of those resources, we use them, and then we dispose them off. Now, in a circular economy, we take the resources, we make things, we use them, we reuse them, we refurbish them, we recycle and recycling is actually the very last one. By the time when you take a dress, for instance, and then it's torn, you don't throw it away in the first. I know some of us are notorious for that, but you don't throw it away the first time. Go and remake it. Take it to the tailor and remake it. That is a very simple explanation to a circular economy. When we were growing up, for instance, we used to see our mother get plastics bottles and then or containers of any kind, and then when the milk delivery man would come along, we would fill the milk with those containers instead of throwing them away. That is a very simple explanation, layman's language explanation of circular economy. So a circular economy entails keeping resources in the loop and making sure that as little as possible just ends up in the environment. And I always say that according to Ellen MacArthur Foundation, if we continue in this business as usual kind of situation, by 2050, we will end up having more plastics in the ocean than fish.
And that means what then, of course, automatically ends up giving health problems across. And, well, the world is not a better place to live in. I agree. So what examples can you share of private sector initiatives that perhaps help promote sustainable plastic waste management?
And I mentioned what some of our members are doing, at individual levels, but also collectively, just making some of those critical decisions at the, at the design level, at the management level, and saying we are already in the market, but there's a difference that we can make. We can transition our product from colored to clear. We can remove some additives from our HDPE bottles. HDPEs are like the cooking oil bottle containers, to make sure that they are more recyclable. But also we are seeing an increase of, in initiatives like take-back schemes. Take-back, I mean, where you go to a supermarket, for instance, in the retail industry, and see they have like, bring back your bottle here. So we can make sure that it's easier for the recyclers or the collectors to be able to come back and say we have a point where we can collect. The other thing that we are keeping on sensitizing people, and especially the citizens, is to separate the waste at the source, even at your household level. Make sure you don't mix up your dry waste and your wet waste, because then when the collector comes to pick that waste and it's mixed, it makes it difficult for us to separate when it's already mixed. And also it makes it tedious for the process of cleaning and separating and eventually the recycling. So again, you and I also have a role to play. And the other thing is awareness creation. Wangari Maathai said that if we are going to make a difference for the environment, we must make people aware. And that's how they're going to understand, and that's how they will know their role, and that's how they will contribute. As long as people are not aware, then we cannot blame and say that we did the best that we can. So awareness creation is another thing that is coming up a lot within the private sector area.
And that's the reason why we're having this conversation this morning, because then we are getting the professionals, we are getting research-based conversations, so that at least people got into a point where they understand what they're in, what they're getting themselves into, what they need to do to get us to a space where, we can say that it's a clean environment. I know it's going to be difficult, but then again, there are possibilities as to that. So if we're to speak about the launch of the design guidelines for recyclability in Kenya, the ones that you actually launched recently, kindly put us in the picture, or perhaps provide a preview of these design guidelines and how then they will incentivize the whole activity on sustainable choices.
Great. So once again, like last week, the country held a national dialogue just ahead of today's celebrations for the World Environment Day that were led by the ministry through NEMA and the private sector. That's where the design guidelines were launched. So the guidelines are created by the Kenya Plastics Pact members in support of the government as well and other stakeholders. And now the guidelines again are like, it's like a manual to tell the producers and the manufacturers that there's a better way that we can do this. And so they give a guide to those who are in the manufacturing of plastics and saying, these are the steps that we take are going to make this much of a difference. And so they kind of categorize plastics, or in terms of compatibility, into three. And the green is what is compatible enough to be recycled. We have yellow, it's just like a traffic light, green, amber, and then so green means that these are more recyclable, and then if you go this way, then we increase recycling. A yellow means that these are recyclable, but we have some components that make it difficult. And then red means if you're still doing this, then you're actually contributing to the opposite of what you want to achieve. So the guidelines in basic are like manuals for the producers and the decision makers in those companies and those producers. And then we did get quite some commitments also from private sector members, Coca-Cola, Bidco, recyclers like Taka Solutions, to make sure that we get public commitments and say, within the next year, we want to see this kind of progress. And then this progress will be tracked. And then we report. And that's why I'm saying, from next year, from next World Environment Day, let's start changing the conversation from, oh, we have plastic problem, oh, we have this, oh, we keep crying and crying and crying. Can we start saying next year, we made this commitment, this is the progress we have made, and this is how far we are yet to go.
And perhaps we need to stop this game of playing hide and seek with the government, because it is quite rampant. And I look at the papers this morning, this conversation has taken quite a magnitude, quite a chunk of the newspaper. That is to tell you just how important it is all about. They speak of achieving carbon net zero. That is what all the fuss about, or they're asking question. Of course, a report here as to how Kenya has taken a significant measure to reduce plastic pollution. Equally, adaptation of a circular economy and how it will come in to create jobs and keep environment clean. We're also talking about ensuring affordable water, sanitation, clean, safe and healthy environment for all, and equally a conversation on how to beat plastic pollution. We should recycle plastic waste when possible and single-use plastic use, alternative packaging. We're also talking about the status of plastic waste management in Vihiga County. We have gone to the level of the counties. And Kenya University to host Environment Fete. It is quite a big conversation. They're talking about building resilience, transforming lives amidst climate change, and what the government is going to do and what the president is going to do to join in the conversation. Are you optimistic about our plastic-free future? And do you suppose that Kenyans can hugely contribute to this future?
I am 100% optimistic.
Is it? Like, I'm almost asking you to give us timelines, but then I'm like, no, let's just not go there. Let's just be optimistic. That should be good enough.
I am very optimistic. And again, your contribution may not be $1 million. Let's leave the $1 million to the $1 million kind of people, banks. But your little contribution, as simple as saying, from today, I'm going to make sure that I have 2 bins where I put my dry waste and my wet waste. And then the recycler or the collector says, I'll make sure that either my collection truck has 2 compartments where when I go to Linda's house and I find that she has separated her waste, then I won't end up mixing them. I'll also put them separate. And because one of the big issues is investment, then you might say that I'm not able to afford a compartmentalized truck or able to divide. Then why not select days and say, Monday, I'll be collecting the wet waste. On Wednesday, I'll be collecting the dry waste. And then when it gets to the recycler, then it makes it easier for them. The other way is just to make sure that don't litter. Just don't litter.
Right.
And at the end of the day, when you buy, let's say, a refillable water bottle, it makes more sense. You carry your own water, you refill. So at the end of the day, you won't have disposed like 10 bottles at the end of the month, just because. Then you can buy your reusable shopping bag. Not every time you go get a bag and then you dispose it off, and the next time you go and buy another one and dispose it off. When it comes to fashion, for instance, just make sure you go for the quality, so that at the end of the day, you don't end up having a full closet that has clothes that you don't use. Because circular economy at the end of the day is not just about plastic. It's in every product. It's in every industry. For the industries, let's make sure that the waste or the output of one is the input of another. Waste to value. Waste is only because we see it as waste. But when we look at it as value, then it makes a whole lot of difference. And yet I am very optimistic, and I'm very proud that I'm Kenyan and taking this, conversation as a Kenyan, because honestly speaking, we are doing well and we can do better. And
I'm glad that you note that we are doing well. We're looking forward to greater conversations revolving around preserving the environment, but of importance, action. Your parting shot.
My parting shot is, let's not wait for the other person to do or to act. Let's not point fingers. And there's a quote I like, taking that one of the biggest challenges that we have is the assumption that the other person will do it. We don't have anybody else to protect this world. It is our Mother Earth. It is, the only planet A that we have. We cannot start expecting that we have, I don't know, Mars or, I don't know which other planet. And how about we just refocus some of those investments in actually protecting what we already have? Because the solutions are there. The solutions are there. We just need to tap into them. We just need to increase the investments in them. And so let's not stop saying that, Alela, it's your responsibility to preach this gospel. Or Josephine, it's your responsibility to change the system. It is the responsibility of each one of us, and we will collectively come together, then we'll make a big difference.
Well said, and as they would always say it casually, it's very, very important that you take care of the environment today. It'll take care of you tomorrow. Communications lead, Sustainable and Inclusive Business Kenya, that is CIBK. Is it CIBK or CIBK?
SIBK.
SIBK. Why am I saying C and S? Yes, SIBK. All right, Josephine Moria, thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. The conversation is on. The conversation continues. It is incumbent upon you and me to take care of the environment. Any special events today?
We have a lot of engagements across the private sector and the government as well.
Right.
Cleanups, conversations. I know the main event is happening in Nakuru. There has been tree planting exercises, and it's the whole coming together for me that is quite motivating, because now we are seeing a situation where one institution is not working on their own, but it's an effort, a combined efforts from all the stakeholders coming together. And for me, I think it's the whole point of celebrations.
Right.
And I want to wish everybody a happy World Environment Day. Just